Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, The Mineral That Saved My Life. My shows are an attempt to change your mind about sickness and disease, and to give you strength and to help you believe in your own wellness. In spite of all of the advances in medicine, we're more afraid than ever about sickness and disease, and it's pretty scary out there. And so very few people are demonstrating to us through their own lives how good we can actually feel on a daily basis. And I want you to feel that way. I want you to be one of those lighthouses that sends a beacon out to everybody that they can feel good. And that's what my shows are all about. And before we get started, I want to tell you, I do have a class in New York coming up, and it's coming up pretty quickly. I think it's the 24th of February. So if anybody's listening and wants to go to a packed live class full of how to make your own kefir kombucha and cultured vegetables, you get to take home a jar of cultured vegetables. We have a blast in New York, in Manhattan. Head on over to my website at culturedfoodlife.com. You'll see the class, or go to my Facebook page. And we have a few spots left. We don't have very many, but I love meeting you guys. It means the world to me. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be in New York if anybody's around. So it's also on my Facebook page at Donna Schwenk's Cultured Food Life at the top of the page under events. So if anybody would like to get a few of those seats that are left, I would love to meet you. It's just a thrill. That's what keeps me going, is meeting you guys and helping you guys. Today's show is really one that helped propel me into the world of probiotic foods. This is really what started it all for me. And if you're new to the show, there are foods like kefir, which is fermented milk or a non-dairy fermented milk product, and cultured veggies, and which are pickles and krauts, and drinks too, like water, kefir, and kombucha. And all of them are probiotic in nature. And I teach you how to make these foods and make them a part of your life and change your life. And hopefully these podcasts are encouragement for you. Because I know when you're starting something new, you need encouragement, you need wisdom, you need to understand why you're doing it, or else you won't do it. And that's why I make these podcasts. I make them short. I make them something so you can just listen to one a day or once a week, whenever you can, because it'll encourage you and it'll get you motivated, because I needed that in my life and I didn't have that when I started. And so I wanted to make something for you to encourage you. I can't stress how important it is to pay attention to what you feed your body. This last year, we moved from Kansas City to Fallbrook, California, to our home now in Valley Center, California, to be near our two older children and their families. Both of my older kids had moved out here, and they were wanting us to come, and we own our own businesses, so we can do it anywhere. So we decided to head out and move out here, and it was crazy, guys. All the changes that have happened to me. And if I hadn't had my probiotic cultured foods, I don't know if I'd have made it. Moving across country is brutal. It's not fun, and it's not easy. And with my coolers packed with jars and my trailer full of my culturing stuff, it made all the difference in the world, getting out here and setting up. And, my husband and I are getting older, and we feel so good. We feel so young, and it's all because of these foods. Most people are looking to relax, and Ron and I just started a whole new life for ourselves in a whole other planet over here in California, which is, goodness gracious, it's a completely different world out here, and we love it so much. But even the animals and critters are different out here, and we're having so much fun just being a family again and loving each other, being together. And thankfully, because of these foods, we were able to do that in this time in our lives. And it's interesting because 16 years ago, I found myself pregnant with my third child, who we brought with us, who's now 16. And I had always had trouble in my pregnancies with all three of my children. And I had a lot of hypertension and preeclampsia. And because of this, I had to be hospitalized for all the births of my children, and sometimes for a couple of months. And this time, on the third pregnancy, which was 16 years ago, I was 41, and it was extra hard on me. And I didn't know about cultured foods, and my diet was not the best. And the pregnancy was life-threatening to me. It got really, really bad. I spent months and months, almost my whole pregnancy, on bed rest, and I was under constant care. And I never understood why that was so hard, why I had such hard pregnancies. And my family has a history of high blood pressure, and I've struggled with high blood pressure on and off for years before cultured foods. And I was just told that I needed to expect to take medication for it because everybody else in my family did. And so that was hard for me. It made me mad. I didn't want to accept a predetermined destiny that I had no choice over. I wanted to know why I had high blood pressure and what was the tendencies that was causing this inside of me to make this happen. I was getting these little clues all along, but never figured it out until the birth of my third child, Holly. And that was what made me find cultured foods. So my Holly was born 7.5, almost 8 weeks early. And I was on bed rest for 6 months of that pregnancy. And the high blood pressure was so extremely high, and the stress began to affect my liver. And they delivered her early to save my life because my liver started to shut down. And my blood pressure didn't come down right after the birth of my child, which they said that it would, which it had in the other pregnancies, but in this case it didn't. And in the hospital, they put me on a high-dose magnesium drip that made me so sick I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go see my newborn daughter who was in the neonatal unit down the hall, and that just absolutely tortured me beyond belief. Keeping me from my daughter made my blood pressure even higher, but she was too sick to leave the neonatal unit, and I couldn't even sit up long enough to get into a wheelchair because the doses of magnesium were so high. They had to give me so much that I couldn't even sit up. It was awful. But they did that so that they didn't want me to stroke. They didn't want me to, because it was so bad. But it's times like these that things that happen to us like this that can change our lives if we let it. And I will never forget that day. I was laying in the hospital bed and I was staring at the ceiling and begging God to bring my blood pressure down. And the nurse came into the room and I asked her to please let me see my daughter. I said, part of my blood pressure being high is because I can't see her. And if you'd let me see her, I know it would help bring it down because I'm just being tortured here. So that sweet nurse did just that. At 2 a.m. in the morning, she wheeled my entire bed when everybody was out of the neonatal unit. Well, not everybody, but most of the traffic was gone. And then she nailed my whole bed into that neonatal room. And there I saw my little 3-pound preemie. I would, put my hands and touched her little body and into her little incubator, and I will never forget that moment. And I saw her struggling, in that little thing, and I thought it was my fault because she was born early because of me. And I vowed to find the answers that I needed to give her the life she deserved and not this life of struggle that she was doing now. And my body was down and out, but it was not over. And I knew that it could rebound. There had to be answers for me. And they wheeled me back to my room, and my blood pressure started coming down after I saw my daughter. And as I rested in bed, I started putting the pieces together. If they kept me on a magnesium drip so I wouldn't have a stroke in the hospital, did that mean I wasn't hanging on to the magnesium in my cells? And maybe this was causing my high blood pressure? I started researching for many months later, and this was the time I started drinking kefir. And after I started drinking kefir, I watched my blood pressure normalize with the addition of kefir in my life. And I found out that not only was kefir high in magnesium, but it also helped you absorb it from other foods because I was taking magnesium, but I wasn't keeping it in my cells. And kefir started to help me and allowed me to hang on to that magnesium, and it lowered my blood pressure, which it does. In 1 out of 3 people, it will naturally lower your blood pressure. It also reduces inflammation in the body, and it had normalized not only my blood pressure, but it had made my blood sugars better too, and I was thrilled. And so the understanding didn't end there. I started realizing that every single food I craved on a regular basis had magnesium in it. Dark chocolate, avocados, bananas, figs, and nuts. And I started experimenting with things, and I found that I could drop my blood pressure even more with certain supplements. And I discovered that your body absorbs minerals, especially magnesium, in bath salts really, really well. And it will not only absorb what it needs, it will just take in the parts that it needs and leave the rest, so you won't overdose on it. I found these wonderful Dead Sea mineral bath salts, and I have a link to them on my website because Amazon sells them. And I would take baths with these salts, and my blood pressure would come down even more, like virtually overnight, because it was getting enough of the magnesium that it needed and other minerals too in that. And it was pretty dramatic. And I felt like I had found the missing piece to help my body find its balance. I started to realize that my tendency towards high blood pressure, and especially during my pregnancies, was my body's cry for more magnesium and other minerals as well. And foods that had lots of magnesium began to appear in my life everywhere. I was a woman, I was just on a mission to learn all I could to keep my blood pressure down and to help my daughter, Holly, have the life she needed. I was always told that salt would raise my blood pressure, but then I found Celtic Sea Salt. And Celtic Sea Salt is moist and has a lot of magnesium in it, and it has 80 other minerals in it. So I kept a little glass jar on my counter, and I started to use that in my food, and I noticed it really helped me because not only did it have magnesium, it had other, minerals and nutrients that my body was craving and needing. And as I watched, I liked Celtic Sea Salt the best. The moistness of it, that's kind of a wet salt, it seemed to work the best for all the other salts I tried, even over Himalayan and some real salts, although I think those are good because they have minerals too. Celtic Sea Salt seemed to be the best for me because of the magnesium. So I added it to everything. I started adding it to things, and it just seemed to work incredibly well for me. And I noticed that particular salt worked the best, and I believe it's because it has more magnesium in it. Everybody needs minerals, plants, humans, animals. It's a part of the cellular makeup of this planet. That's just the way it is. But we tend to ignore minerals because we don't really understand them. We just think we get them, and most of the time we just get them. But it's so essential to our lives, and many people struggle to hang on to, especially magnesium. Magnesium deficiencies can wreak havoc in more ways than one. Magnesium is a cofactor in more than 300 enzymes that regulate different biochemical reactions in the body. And that includes protein synthesis, muscles, nerve function, blood glucose, blood pressure regulation, as well as hundreds of other processes. It's profound that magnesium does so much. Magnesium can be found in food, but the amount is really dependent on the amount in the soil that the food is grown in. And for instance, highly processed foods, and especially sugar, will deplete the body of magnesium. And I didn't know that, but I started looking into my diet, and I saw that a lot of foods I was eating was depleting the magnesium that I had. And a number of studies have previously shown that magnesium can benefit your blood pressure and even help prevent sudden cardiac arrest or heart attack and stroke. And for example, one study published earlier this year in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and this is a very cool study, and looked at a total of 7 studies and collectively covering more than 240,000 participants. And the results showed that dietary magnesium intake is very preventative of strokes. And 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium, and I was one of them. And a magnesium deficient can lead to all kinds of problems, diabetes, high blood pressure, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. And I found in myself that when I corrected that mineral deficiency, everything got better. Everything in my life got better. It was amazing. And my body just wasn't hanging on to it. And the more that I had cultured foods, the more my body started to absorb magnesium. And I noticed that it would hang on to it. And it was interesting too. We have this, inulin is a prebiotic, which is, I sell a product called Prebio Plus. And it's also it's made from like the peels of oranges and lemons. And it's made from chicory root and dandelion leaves. What it does is there's prebiotics in it that feed the good bacteria in your gut. And I found that when I had more of that, I hung on to more of my magnesium. And my minerals seemed to not drop so rapidly. And I noticed that it was all about absorption, about how my bacteria was able to absorb and hang on to it. And I haven't seen a huge change in my body because I used to take a lot of magnesium supplements, and I don't need to do that as much anymore. As the more my body changed and the more my bacteria changed, the more I hung on to it. So I hope this will help you. It was a life-changing event for me because it was just this simple little, mineral that we don't think about a lot. And yes, you need a lifestyle that has a lot of magnesium and minerals to your life. And you also need to listen to your body's warning signs, like why do you have high blood pressure, or why do you have blood sugar irregularities, or what's going on in your life that's causing these? Because the same body that can keep you well has made you sick. So it also can keep you well again, but there's something you're not getting, something that you need to learn and it was just such a simple thing for me to understand that, magnesium was affecting me in such a great way. And I found a way to remedy that and to help my body. And the signs were all around me and I just had to pay attention to it. So here's something I want to ask you. What foods do you crave and what's in them that's missing in your diet? You should pay attention to that. Don't just take the drugs and mask the symptoms. Although if you have high blood pressure, it is good I'm not telling you to get off your medication. I'm just saying work with that and seek and destroy the mission to figure out a way to bring it down. There's a lot of ways to bring down blood pressure. Weight loss helps. There's all kinds of things that greatly affect your blood pressure. And you should learn about it. You should learn and see what you can do to assist your body, because you're going to live longer, you're going to live happier, you're going to look better, you're going to feel better, and you're going to have an awful lot of energy that's going to be freed up, that's going to allow you to do things in your life that you couldn't even imagine. Wellness should really be the norm and not the exception. And if it can be that way for you, if you'll seek it and ask for the answers to your health issues, the answers will come to you. They do come. When we ask for help, it's always given, and you all have guidance. All of you do. And it awakens in you a desire to work with your body and live an extraordinary life of wellness and joy. So give your body whole, real foods and add lots of cultured foods because they help tremendously. Add lots of minerals to your diet, and then watch as your body gives you evidence of the miracle that you so are. You're a masterpiece. You really are. And it's so sad if you go through your life and you don't realize that, because your body's cool. Your body does things that you just can't even imagine. If you could just see what it does to digest your food, it'd blow your mind. And when you understand it and you start to work with it and you start to find ways to make yourself even better, you stand a little taller and you feel stronger. When you find these answers that plague you and make you sick and then you overcome them, it's the coolest thing ever. I am the creator and founder of Cultured Food Life, and I could not have done any of this without my body's help. Just think what you guys could do, what you could do with your body together. The sky's the limit. Seek and destroy those missions, find out the things that are ailing you, and then make them better, and then watch what happens. You just can't imagine how good your body's designed to feel, and I hope you find that, because it makes this journey of life so much better. Have a great week.